All right, just to let everybody know, this is a New York Knicks broadcast. This is not a Bible study. Just want to let everybody know for my regular listeners. So now, it is now Sunday, August 23rd, 2020. The draft order has been set, and the New York Knicks are at the 8th spot. And I've been seeing a lot of options of who the Knicks should draft. I did a previous video on a trade proposal, and I didn't say the trade was going to happen. I said it was a possibility, a proposal based on the fact that a lot of people in New York are extremely high on LaMelo Ball and are actually almost desperate to obtain him, and willing to trade up and trade away assets to get him. I am not that crazy in terms of thinking that the Knicks are desperate for a point guard. I am not. I am very happy with Frank Ntilikina, and I think he should be given the keys and let him run the team. I know I'm in the minority on that, but I am not concerned with a point guard. I know there's some good ones out there. I heard a lot of people mention Tyrese Maxey and Kyra, the kid Kyra Lewis, I think his name is, from Alabama. I've seen videos of both of them. I watched some scouting reports. They're pretty good. I wouldn't use a lottery choice on either one of those, though, nor Cole Anthony, actually. So, and this is the thing. Overall, there's no surefire game changers in this draft. In previous drafts, for example, you had a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, or you had a guy like a LeBron James, or an Allen Iverson. Or Patrick Ewing. Clear number one choices, like no question. You're going to take this guy number one, and he's going to be a game changer, multiple-time All-Star, possibility of leading you to a championship. There are those type of people in the past. I think Luka Doncic I would have thought he would have been the first pick of the last, when he was drafted, I think it was last year. They picked Ayton, and Ayton obviously not a bad choice. I think he's going to help lead Phoenix to a playoff spot. They were 8-0 in the bubble. But Doncic, to me, was a generational type player, and I think he's showing that. And so, but this year, there are no basketball savants in the draft. There are a lot of prospects in the draft. A lot of prospects, a lot of good prospects. I would think, and in that regard, this draft is filled with a lot of solid people that can be solid NBA players. Now, again, there's always a player that nobody expected to become a superstar that becomes a superstar. Giannis Antetokounmpo was picked 15th the year he was drafted. And his first couple of years in the league, he didn't do anything. He showed flashes, but nobody knew he was going to be an MVP when he was picked 15th. At least 14 other teams didn't think so. Okay. Donovan Mitchell, he just scored like 57 points in the bubble. 9 teams passed on him. Okay. Draymond Green, an all NBA defender, a defensive player of the year candidate annually. Second round, nobody thought he was going to become what he became. So there's always a guy like that. And it's almost impossible to see who it's going to be, because if it were possible, people would have picked him higher. The Knicks actually have a guy like that. Our fans don't always recognize it, because Knicks fans are notorious for hating their own players and thinking players on other teams are better, until our players get traded to those teams and they excel. But Mitchell Robinson is one of those guys, picked in the second round. I think if you redrafted his draft class, he would be a lottery pick, obviously. See, so nobody expected that. But what you want, as a Knick fan, let me just talk some reason if I can. You can't take shortcuts to build a champion. LeBron James spoiled us, because when him and Bosh joined D Wade, that was instant championship material. That is something rare. It doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen hardly ever when you get a situation like that. Most championship teams are built from the ground up. And when they get a piece, they trade, it's a final piece. It's not like they just did all of these guys that are just free agents and build a champion. It's very rare that that happens. I think only LeBron, the last time I think that happened that I recall was when Moses Malone went to Philadelphia and joined Dr. J in Philadelphia, and they won a championship. But even in that case, if you remember at that time, that was back in '82, they had a good team. They had a really good team, even without Moses Malone. But again, he was a final piece. When Akeem Olajuwon won the second title in Houston, the final piece for that second team was Clyde Drexler. Even though Clyde was past his prime at that time, he was the final piece. But they had already had a good team. They had won a championship before the year before without him. So championship teams are built from the ground up. Look at San Antonio. Just this year was the first year in the last 20 seasons that they didn't make the playoffs. And they always draft and develop players. They develop players so well that people are looking for their developmental coaches, their assistant coaches to become head coaches just to come from Greg Popovich's tree. They develop so well that people want to take their players and overpay them because they're coming out of the San Antonio program. That's how you build championships. Look at the Dallas Mavericks. When they won, they drafted Dirk Nowitzki. Okay, they developed him and put a team around him. That's how you develop champions. Okay, that's how you develop championships. Look at Toronto. Toronto had Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry. These are their own players, Norman Powell. And then they got Kawhi Leonard, and they won a championship. He was the final piece. Now, he's not even on the team this year, and they're still pushing for a championship. Why? Because they developed their own homegrown crew. That's number one. Knicks fans are too impatient, and this is how it works. I mentioned this in the last video when we talked about the possible trade proposal. And again, that was just a proposal. I am not really interested in trading up from LaMelo Ball myself. I'm just letting y'all know that. I put that together because, again, people are pretty rabid about LaMelo Ball. I'm not saying he's not going to be a great player. I'm just not ready to, sell the whole ship to try to get him. Okay, so the Knicks fans are always hating on their own players. Let's take the most recent example. This happened many times. I've been a Knicks fan since 1970. This has happened many times. But with this particular situation in the last 20 years, it's been worse because, unfortunately, our owner was listening to the fans and the media, and he reacted to it. That's what has happened. Tim Hardaway and Trey Burke are on a Dallas Mavericks team, okay, that's pushing the Clippers. The series is tied 2-2. Now, I don't know who's going to win the series, but those guys are playing well for a team. They came off a Knicks team, I think, that won 17 games. Okay? So why is that? Well, let me tell you why. Tim Hardaway, when he was signed by the Knicks, was signed to be either a number 1 or a number 2 option. What does that mean? That means he knew coming into every game, he's going to get 15 to 20 shots. He's going to have plays called for him. The team is going to depend on him to score 20 points a night. Okay? It was KP and him. And then when KP went down, it was him. All of his, and the proof that he's not that player is what happened. All of his worst characteristics as a player came out. The turnovers, the bad shots, the not so great defense. He tried, but not so great defense. The bad passes, all of that came out because he was trying to be the number 1 option. On the Dallas Mavericks, you have KP. Well, Luka is the number 1 option. KP is the number 2 option. Number 3 option actually depends on who's hot that day. This particular night, as I'm talking to you, they just beat the Clippers at the buzzer with a Luka 3, and Trey Burke was the 3rd option. Actually, the second option. He had 25 points tonight. Okay. When you put Hardaway as a third or a fourth option, he gets more opportunities because he gets one-on-one opportunities. He's not being double teamed. There's no pressure on him to shoot 15 to 20 shots a night. The team is not looking for him to carry them. Then he excels. Okay. Same with Julius Randle. To sign Julius Randle for a 3-year, $63 million contract, and I'm glad that this particularly third year was a team option because he won't be around. He is thinking, and he was being led to believe by the Knicks management, that he was the number one option. He's a turnover waiting to happen. He tries to bully his way through double teams. Any Knicks fan saw this. He tries to bully his way through double teams. He spins into double teams. He doesn't pass out of double teams. And then he looks off players so that he can go one-on-one and take a bad shot. And his defense is horrible. And he was being exploited on defensive end. They would switch until they got him trying to guard a 1 or 2 or 3. And then he'd get exploited. Okay? That's a problem. If you take Julius Randle and you have 2 other options before him, make him a third option. Like I mentioned the Golden State Warriors in my last video because they have 3 options already. They have Curry, they have Thompson, and they have Draymond Green. All of those are threats on the offensive end of the floor. So now if you put a Julius Randle or even a Wiggins as a fourth option, you're giving them opportunities to play against one-on-one against players, against the other team's 4 or 3 if it gets switched. And you're getting opportunities for them to play against second units. Julius Randle, with his size and athleticism, is too much for most players to handle one-on-one. That's why he's always getting double teamed. He's too much. So if you have Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green on the floor, teams have to keep them under wraps continually. Because the minute either Thompson or Curry steps over half court, they're a threat. They're a threat. So you have that, and that creates opportunities for a guy like Randle to go one-on-one. Then we'll see a different player. Okay. That's why, it's New York fans, it's very difficult to, and everybody now is into NBA 2K and they think that this is some sort of computer game where you just look at stats and put people together and you win. It doesn't work like that. In the NBA, you win championships by establishing a tremendous defensive identity first. And then you have your shooters and your offensive players that can get buckets when you need them. But you will not be in the game unless you have an established defense. All championship teams have that. All of them. As a matter of fact, if you go back 20 years in champions, I'm thinking of Miami or Dallas or San Antonio or Toronto. All of those teams have at least 3 players on the floor at all times that can guard 1 through 4 or even 1 through 5. What do I mean by that? That means you can't switch into a mismatch with them. Because no matter what switching you do, they're going to have a guy on you that could lock you down. Okay? That's important. Then you add a guy like a Kawhi Leonard that's not only all NBA defense, but he's a tremendous offensive player and he can get buckets when you need it. That's when you get a champion right there. Or Dirk Nowitzki. And that's why Miami was so dominant, because the big 3 were all tremendous defensive players. And they had so much. If you watch their games, the speed that they used on defense, it was mind-boggling. Everybody focuses on the dunks and stuff, but it's the defensive end you win the championships. Now, in this draft, because there's no outstanding, clear-cut game changer, in a situation like this, you want to go for a solid pro. Somebody that's not going to be a superstar, but can't miss as an NBA rotation player. Okay, an NBA rotational player. If possible, you would like a guy that can play both sides of the ball, that can play both ends, defense and offense, a 2-way player, if it's possible. It's hard. Like, for example, LaMelo is a tremendous passer. Obviously, he doesn't have a shot. He's a tremendous mind in terms of IQ on the basketball floor. He doesn't play defense, right? So, Obi Toppin, above the rim type of player. Above the rim type of player. Athleticism off the charts. Runs the floor like a deer. Can't play defense. Okay? And you have to be willing to work with people like that because this is what you have. You're not going to get, no player is perfect, or like I said, or unless you get a superstar. So now for the Knicks at the 8th spot, I am thinking, I'm hoping, because everybody's looking at LaMelo, I think most people agree the top 3 choices, and I don't know the order, but you're going to get LaMelo and Wiseman and Edwards. You're going to get them in no particular order. Those are your 3 top ones. Edwards probably physically, athletically, gifted-wise, top person in the draft, no question. Okay, what he will become on the NBA, that depends on how hard he's willing to work and how well he's going to develop. But he's got all the tools. His body at 225 pounds is NBA solid already. Athleticism off the chart. Can shoot the ball when he's ready from any place over half court. This kid has got all the physical, athletic gifts you would need to be a superstar in the NBA. We don't know if he will. There have been other guys like that. There was a guy they drafted in the 90s. Many of you guys, the young guys may not know, but there was a guy named J.R. Ryder. He was like that. J.R. Ryder had every tool. They called him the next Jordan when he came out. Okay? As a matter of fact, that's how Allen Iverson got the nickname The Answer. That's how he got the nickname The Answer, right? Because the question was, Jordan had retired to play baseball because he was caught up in the gambling scheme. Most people don't know about that, but he was caught up in gambling. And in order to try to quell it, the commissioner asked him to step away. You might hear about this now because it's been so many years later, but that was what happened. Jordan was a tremendous gambler, gambling problem, like Pete Rose gambling, okay? But the commissioner handled it differently than baseball. So they told him to step away. So he played baseball for a season or 2. And while he was out, the question was, everybody said, who's going to be the next Jordan? Okay, so J.R. Ryder was drafted, I think, in 94, 95. And he had all the physical tools, 6'5", jump through the roof, jump shot, 200-something pounds, solid. But he wasn't the answer. He didn't want to develop it. He didn't push himself anywhere near Kobe or Jordan would to get the most out of his talent. And then Allen Iverson came, and they said the question was, who's going to be the next Jordan? And they said, this is the answer. That's why they call Allen Iverson the answer. They said, this is the answer. It's Allen Iverson, right? Now, Allen Iverson was a great player. Obviously, he wasn't Jordan, but he was a tremendous player, tremendous talent. But anyway, there's nobody like that in this draft. So you know your first 3 picks. Chicago picks 4th, okay? Chicago has Wendell Carter, who they just drafted, as the 5. They got Lauri Markkanen at the 4. They just fired their coach, so that should make all of them happy. They were all unhappy with this guy, this coach. They got a guy named Hutchison that's pretty good for a 3. But they also got Zach LaVine, who plays 2 and 3. They got Kobe White as the point guard. They got a lot of tools. If I'm them, I'm hearing they're looking at either a point guard or Denny. They're looking at Denny, Jeremy. Chicago's talking about Denny, or they're talking about a point guard, like maybe a Killian Hayes or a Halliburton. Okay, fine. So then you have 5th, your Cleveland Cavaliers. To me, it's a no-brainer. They take Denny's there, they take him. If Obi's there, they take him. And it's funny. The other day, I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in a lot of these basketball writers. I don't like what a lot of them say because most of them have never played, coached, or scouted the game. They're just basketball philosophers. But the other day, Jonathan Wasserman put together on Bleacher Report, he put together a comparison of NBA players to the guys that are being drafted. And Denny, he described Denny as Gordon Hayward. And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. I do see Gordon Hayward in Denny. I do see that. And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. So if you like Gordon Hayward, okay, there's Denny. That's him. I think that's the situation. I personally am not very high on Denny. I don't think he's gonna translate. There's a lot of great players that play in Europe and play in college that don't translate. Okay, there was a guy a couple of years ago, tremendous shooter, man. Oh God, what was his name? Came out of Brigham Young. The guy could shoot the lights out and couldn't make it in the league. You know why he couldn't make it in the league? Because the release split seconds. We're talking split seconds. He has a couple of split seconds left to get his shot off in the NBA than he had in college. That's all the difference in the world. He couldn't shoot in the NBA. Okay, a couple of split seconds. All right, that's sometimes the difference between a player making it and a player not making it. Okay, so I'm not real high on Denny, but let me just say this up front: whoever the Knicks draft, I'm going to root for them because I'm a Knicks fan. So whoever the Knicks draft, whether player I want or player I didn't like, I'm going to still root for them because I'm a Knicks fan. But I'm telling you today who I think they should vote. They should go after. So I think Denny will be off the board. Obi will be off the board. To me, though, if Cleveland's real smart, they really, or Atlanta, they take Onyeka. To me, because I think I've been looking at Onyeka a little more closely. Even though he plays center at USC, and a lot of people project him to be a center, he could be a good center, obviously. I think he could be a 4. I think he could be I think people are sleeping on him at the 4 spot. So Onyeka should be gone. Obi should be gone between Atlanta and Cleveland. Then at 7, Detroit has been saying. I mean, if you've been paying attention, I listened to the area news casters from those cities. They want a point guard. So if LaMelo's gone, they're going to look at Killian Hayes or Halliburton. Those are their guys. So if those, and one of those guys is going to be on the board. So they'll probably, if Killian Hayes is available, to me, out of those 3, he's the best one. They'll probably take him. Okay, that's Detroit at 7. Then the Knicks come to 8. If Killian Hayes is there, I'm not going to be sad if they take him. I'm not, because I think Killian Hayes is going to be a star. He's a little young now. He's going to need some development, and that's the problem in New York. People are not patient enough to let some of these guys develop. But they got a development team now between the guys they got from Utah, Johnny Bryant and McParron, and of course Tibbs, and then of course Wood. I think they're going to still hire Woodson. Okay, so they're getting some developed type coaches in there, and then of course Kenny Payne, and they're hopefully tune out the noise, because you guys don't want to see these young guys commit 5 and 6 turnovers a night. That's what's going to happen when they first start. That doesn't mean they stink. I'm guaranteeing you, though, whoever the Knicks choose, somebody's gonna be calling them a bust before the first year. Anyway, so I'm thinking Detroit takes Killian Hayes at 7. He's off the board. I'm looking at Devin Vassell at 8. I like Okoro, but Okoro has a tremendous defensive upside. I mean, he's 6'6", and he's athletic, and he's a good passer. But I don't see much of a shot. He might develop one. He would come off the bench for the Knicks. I don't see him starting. But Vassell is a 6'7", could play a 2 or a 3. 7-foot wingspan. To me, Vassell is the best defender in the draft. High IQ, and his jump shot is not broken. I mean, he got something you can work with. I mean, I can see him being a solid shooter in the NBA. So now you're talking about a 2-way player, okay? Not a superstar, but definitely a rotation piece. And at this stage, what you don't want is a bust. I don't want to go like boom or bust. I want somebody solid, and I think Vassell is that guy. So I think they should draft him. People are looking at shooters. This guy, Neesmith, I think his name is Neesmith, the best shooter that I've seen in college in a while. But I'm just, and he's athletic too. He's got some athleticism to him as well. But I don't know if he's worthy of a lottery pick. That's what I'm saying. The Knicks wanted to trade down and get him. I can see them doing that. That'd be fine. But I don't think he's going to be a lottery pick. All right. So I'm looking at Vassell because I'm thinking he's the best 2-way prospect in this draft. He's got the long arm. So now people are looking at shooters, and I totally understand it. I'm going to put out another video on upcoming free agents because I'm thinking we can get shooters. We can get 2 good shooters in this free agent class. And I know people are looking at 2021 with the big free agent class coming out. None of those guys are coming to the Knicks. I mean, let's just be real. None of those guys are coming to the Knicks. I don't care who the coach is. None of those guys are coming to the Knicks. Let's be real, okay? And I wish people would stop doing that, hoping on guys that'll never come. And we'll talk about that in the next video. But you get a Vassell, and you get a couple of shooters. I'm thinking we can get a shooter at the 2 spot, a really good high-level shooter, and a shooter at the 4 spot. with the 27th pick, there's a lot of guys available. There's another couple of guys that are shooters that might come in the late round. Some guy, Winston Cassius or whatever his name. There's a couple of shooters that come later. Maybe we might want to look at. But I really would like them to get a 4, a guy that's a 4 that can possibly be a stretch 4. I'd like that kid Jalen Smith from Maryland, but I don't think he'll be there at 27. I think he'll be gone by then. But I like him. If we want to trade up a couple picks to get him. But I'd like them to get a 4, a front court player that's a 4 that can play the 4 spot. But yeah, I'm looking at Devin Vassell. I wish they would get him. I want him. I think he'll be on the board at 8, and I think we should take him. I think we should take him and roll with him, because if you're talking about, I want Frank Ntilikina to start. So you're talking about Frank Ntilikina, R.J. Barrett, Devin Vassell if he was. I don't think he will, because like I said, I'm looking at some free agents. But let's just say Devin Vassell, Mitchell Robinson, right? And then you got to get a 4. I don't want Julius Randle on it. I don't want him starting. And I'd rather them trade him if they could. So I'm going to act like he's not there. And I'm looking at 4s. There's plenty of 4s available that can shoot the ball on the free agent market. And the Knicks have already announced, they've already put out feelers. People already said that they're looking, Ian Begley has already said that they're looking for a stretch 4. In fact, it made Bobby Porter say, well, they got one, and everybody ignored that. So the Knicks are looking for a stretch 4. They already said that. But let's say it was Kevin Knox, okay? So you have Frank, who can guard 1 through 4. Mitchell, or 1 through 5, really. Mitchell Robinson can guard 1 through 5. Vassell will guard 1 through 5. Okay, you have 3 guys on the floor that can guard multiple positions. Okay, multiple positions. And so somebody said, well, who's going to shoot? I don't care. Look, if we got to play 79 to 82 games, 82, 79, 85, that's 1990s Knicks style right there. That's what they used to do. Back in the day, in the Knicks, the last heyday they had, where Ewing was playing at his prime, they were in 90, 88 games all the time. That's the way the game. That's how they played the game, and they were very successful. They won Eastern Conference Championship 3 times. Okay, with that type of style. They had a shooter. Allen Houston was the main shooter. They had a couple of other guys that came off the bench. They had a kid from North Carolina. I forgot his name. He came off the bench. They had Trent Tucker at one point. A couple of shooters, but not on Houston's level. Houston was the shooter, and then they had my man, one of my favorite Knicks of all time, Sprewell, who was just a scorer. And he was also a defender. They had, again, the Knicks always had, at least they had 3 or 4 guys on the court that can guard 1 through 4. Okay, and that's why their games were low scoring. We got to start somewhere. We're coming off 17 and 20 win seasons. If we can claw to 35 to 40 wins and have a bunch of games where we're in most of the games because we're playing tough defense, that's a start. I think we could be better than that, though. When I go into the free agent video, you'll understand what I'm saying. But I'm looking for Devin Vassell at 8. I'm looking for Devin Vassell. If we can get an Obi Toppin, if we take a Koro, I'm not going to whine about that. If we even take Cole Anthony, I'd rather not, but I'm not going to whine about that. If they end up taking this kid Denny, like I said, whoever they take, I'm going to root for him because I'm a Knicks fan. I'm going to be supportive. Okay, but as far as what I see in terms of getting a solid player that can make the next step in development for this team, we're not winning the championship in the next 2 or 3 years, believe me. So we need to start somewhere. We need to start with a defensive foundation. They started with that by hiring Tom Thibodeau. Okay. But now you need to have on the court guys that can play both ends of the floor, but especially the defensive side. You want to start with that, okay, and go from there. Low turnovers, high defense. That's what you want to do. Ball control offense. Low turnovers, high defense. Run people off the 3-point line. Nobody can switch off on you because you're going to be guarded by somebody that can lock you down all the time. That's what you want, okay? So Mitchell Robinson, Vassell, RJ, and Frank, they're all capable of doing that. RJ, needs a little bit push, but I'm expecting a big jump from RJ this year, not on the offensive end, or on the defensive end, because he has the talent and the desire to do it. So I'm expecting big things. So you try to switch on for them. The worst thing they could do is try to get Kevin one-on-one with somebody, and there's defensive schemes that Thibodeau can use to prevent that. Okay, so that's my thing. I'm looking at. Hi, Ruth. This is a basketball broadcast. Yeah, I just want to let you know this is a basketball broadcast. But yeah, I'm looking at Devin Vassell at 8 for the Knicks. Tell me what you all think. Uh, like I said, I don't think they're going to get LaMelo, Edwards, or Wiseman. They'll all be off the board. I expect Obi to be off the board. Either Cleveland or Atlanta takes him. I'm expecting Killian Hayes to be off the board because after LaMelo Ball, to me, he's the best point guard in the draft. So, whoever needs it, and Detroit needs a point guard badly. So I'm expecting them to take him. Um, and Charlotte take Ball if he dropped to 3 anyway, but I don't think he will. Charlotte's going to take the best player available, and Ball's the top 3. So whichever one of those top 3 fall, they'll take them. So that's why you're not going to have, and I'm not that high on Halliburton in terms of a game changer. Halliburton is not a bad player. I'm not trying to dish on him, but I think we can get better. I think Vassell would fit us better because Vassell can play the 2 and the 3. Okay, right now he can come in and play the 2 and the 3. He's a defensive savant. I'm watching films of this guy, and I can't. He's got the same type of defensive instincts that Frank does. It's amazing. This guy really plays the defensive end of the ball, and so I like them to get him, and then we can start building from there. The next video we'll talk about the upcoming free agents and who the Knicks can get with the cap space that they have. Shalom.